Hey, it's Friday. I got my very uncooperative co host here. We'll change in a minute, but we are on disc 5 of season 4 of Star Trek Next Generation. And my co host is like, no, I don't want to be here. No, let me go, I'm being tortured. Oh, you cut my arms off. Uh huh. Gotta love him. Excuse me a minute. Yep, there she goes. She's gonna attack the computer. Nope, she's leaving. Hold on. So, welcome to the D. Louise book series of the new year. Still, I didn't get a new computer for Christmas. I didn't get very much for Christmas, just a few items that I needed. I did not fill the want list. I only got the needed list this year. In fact, I was so paranoid about spending what little money we do have left. I didn't even buy any stocking stuffers. What's up with that? Christmas morning, there's no stockings. What's up with that? It's not Christmas without your stocking stuffers. You know, in the olden days, we'd have stockings with nail file, nail polish remover, cotton spalls, Q-tips, toothpaste, new toothbrush, all these pantyhose if you're a girl, socks if you're a guy, other materials maybe, some immensionables. Maybe if you're in the wealthier class of the world, jewelry. But I don't do jewelry. I'd rather have a book actually. I had a piece of jewelry, had my name with one of those name necklaces. I wore it once. It broke. You can't give me shit like that. Up, there she goes. Clicking up the new year. Bing, bing, bing. If you checked my year in review, I identified the culprit. I even put a new battery in her. And she's telling time, sort of, kind of. She's off a little bit, but she's sort of, kind of telling time. She likes her new battery. Go figure. So, how's your new year starting? Mine actually hasn't started yet. But anyway. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. What a trip, huh? Should go out and play the lottery or what? So, anyways, we are on season 4. We have evolved to disc 5, episode 88, I believe, of this particular podcast. We are doing Night Terrors, then we'll do Identity Crisis, then we'll do Ninth Degree, and then it looks like John D. Lance is coming back, huh? And this is the D. Louise series, and I am Christina, Kristina. I would appreciate your likes and subscribes. I had asked for a Christmas miracle, and obviously it did not happen. I didn't even get close. Hell, I didn't even get like 5 subscribers. I asked for 900. I got 5. Thank you, you 5. I really appreciate it. And then apparently you 5 left. So I'm down 5. It's a treat. And if you watch, pick out the most, whatever you watch. If you watch music or any of those, any type of anything, find somebody that has a gabillion followers, a trillion followers, right? You go into any one of their videos, 1 or 2% likes. So if they have like 200,000 or even a million followers, they'll only have 1,000 likes or 200 likes. I don't know why YouTubers are so don't like to like stuff, but I've seen millions of podcasts where they're all like, please like me, please like me. And the people, they like them. They come in every week. They're subscribers, but they don't like stuff. I don't know what it is. Even the most famous person in the world, you only give 1 or 2% of the actual people get likes. It's just weird. So I really didn't get this too much. I'm thinking, was it a Halloween episode or something? But we'll get there. Just a sec. So we start Night Terrors with a captain's voiceover. We are proceeding through the rim of an uncharted binary star system where we may have located the USS BRITAIN. The missing science vessel failed to arrive at its destination and has not been heard from since a distress call 29 days ago. So it took them 29 days to get here. Couldn't they have warp 9'd it or something? I'm just saying. So we have a female ensign. She actually has a name. She actually has lines. Kudos. We have lots of extras in this episode that have lines and names. Massive extra episode. And they're not playing an alien race and have tons of makeup on. They're all themselves. So they get kudos. They get to appear with main cast members. They get lines. They're on a Star Trek Next Generation episode. They can brag about it for centuries. Hey, I did this. I got a chance at this. It's bragging rights. So we're on the bridge, and Picard says, on screen, magnify. Riker says, that's the Britain, all right. Data says, the ship is intact, sir, with no indication of structural damage. Riker says, engines, all propulsion systems are shut down. The ship is drifting, sir. Picard says, life form readings. Data says, inconclusive. Picard says, counselor? Troy says, there's life on board, but... Picard says, what is it? Troy says, I don't know, something. Picard says, assemble your team. Riker says, Dr. Crusher, report to Transporter Room 3. Worf, Data. Troy says, Commander, I need to come with you too. So we all go to the other ship. So they all beam over to the other ship and they look around. And Data says, there's no malfunction in any of the main systems, sir. Worf says, so that they find a bunch of dead bodies. They killed each other is the overall conclusion of inspecting the ship. Riker looks at one. Worf says, this is another one over here. Worf says the guy was killed with a phaser setting of 6 or 7. Riker says there's more here. Crusher says it's the entire bridge crew. Whoever did this could still be on the ship. Troy says there is someone alive, but he didn't kill these people. And they find him in a closet, and he's a betazoid. And they take him to sickbay. So then we're in sickbay, and Crusher says, we're almost finished with the autopsies, Captain. Picard says, how long will it take to compile the data? Crusher says it's complicated. The dead were found all over the ship. Some were found locked in the rooms, barricaded with weapons piled all around them. Others were found in corridors where they obviously had hand-to-hand combat. It's going to take some time to analyze and sort through the details. We've identified him, the Betazoid guy. I guess we should show him a little bit. Wait a second. All right, this episode reminds me a lot of, I've been doing the J.D. ROBB series on other days. I've been doing Janet and J.D. ROBB. They're my J.D. ROBB is my absolute favorite. I read it at least the entire series at least twice a year, sometimes more. There's one book, Delusion and Death, where a chemical is released into the bar and it causes people to hallucinate and go absolutely bonkers, and they kill each other by any means necessary. And this has a lot of the Red Horse feel to it. While this was not a chemical agent or a biological, it was they discover it's REM, but it just had that Red Horse feel to it. The J.D. Robb book. I would hope and pray that some of you actually watch my book reviews as much as I enjoy doing my book reviews, because I enjoy the books as much as I enjoy Star Trek. I get a little enthusiastic. It would be nice to have more book viewers. It would be nice to have more Star Trek viewers. It would be nice to have more likes. It would be nice to have more subscribers. My hopes for that are very, very low. I just am not one of those people. You watch those videos where guys will going, I got this in months, I got this, I got that, I did this, and I got millions of viewers. I got nothing. I have no talent at all. What can I say? So let's get back to our little story here. There's a couple of points I wanted to bring up the Red Horse thing, because it reminded me a lot of the Red Horse thing. Choices I'm not getting out. They identified him as Andreas Hagen, and he has very few lines for a guest star. But I like all the extras though, because the extras have lines. Oh, there she goes again. Oh. Choices I'm not getting much, Captain. A few words, disconnected phrases. I can. Bing, 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 bing. Wonder what time she thinks it is. Christ. We've identified him as Andreas Hagen from Beta Z, a scientific advisor. He's in a profound catatonic state. Gray says, I'm not getting much, Captain. A few words, disconnected phrases. I can feel his terror, but I can't seem to get through to him. Picard says, stay with him, Counsel. We're examining the Britain for clues, but this man is the only one left who knows what happened there. Gray says, she's talking to him. She's talking to the patient. Because everybody else leaves. And she's like, I'm here. I'm right here. Hagen says, out there, voices. Troy says, voices, what do they say? Hagen says, both things. No, no. Troy says, keep talking to me. I'll try and understand. Oops. So, we're back on the Britain Bridge, and Levoord says, all engines check out perfectly, Commander. Once we get them started, the Britain can get back to Starbase under her own power. Riker says, let's give it a try. LaForge says, preheating injectors, data, fuel. Data says, matter valves are open and operating. Magnetic containment of antimatter pods is constant. LaForge says, okay, open injectors. Data says, open injectors. And then nothing happens. And Riker's like, what's wrong? LaForge says, nothing's wrong. I don't understand. Before we move on, I had a question. Will we ever get this sophisticated? Will we ever have ships in space that don't need gravity things and don't need spacesuits and can fix stuff like these people do and have warp drive? You think we'll ever get to this level of imaginative sophistication? Although, asking the question, you have to go back to the original Star Trek and their communicators and go, it took what, 30 years, 35 years for the flip phone to come out? So, I mean, it's possible, but do you think we'll get this advanced? We'll have to see. So, Crusher comes in and she's telling Picard that she's studied the autopsy results, and the conclusion is appalling. There was no outside source, no alien presence. All 34 of them appear to have killed each other, just like in the Red Horse thing. What could have caused such an event? Drugs, virus, poison? Crusher says toxicology shows no unusual substances in their systems. They all appear to be in good health, but for whatever reason, they seem to turn on each other, using phasers, knives, bare hands. Like you to see this, Captain, and she shows him the log of the other captain. Okay, now I'm gonna bring this up later, and I'm probably repeating myself, but Crusher says it's from the logs of the Britain Captain Zivia's mental condition deteriorating steadily once they became stranded. She began talking of plots of mutinies, and this was the last log. Officer Brink and his men were behind it. They got to the engines. They don't work anymore. Had to eliminate Brink. The ship is out. We're running out. Too dangerous. Out of Brink and his men. And then, well, I guess I'll talk about it later when it comes up. Now, this whole flying sequence with Troy, the way she's got her arms out like that. Have you seen Christopher Reeve lately? Go back and watch the Christopher Reeve Supermans with the flying. It just reminded me so much of Christopher Reeve. That was my very, very first thought when she took off like this, that she was floating. The wind blowing, they got a fan on her, she's going back and forth like she's flying. It feels like Christopher Reeve. It feels like the flying sequences in the Superman movies. That's what it feels like. Of course, this was made about the same time as the Superman movies, so maybe that's why the technology was the same. So she keeps getting these messages of eyes in the dark, one moon, where are you? I'm coming, where are you? Eyes in the dark, one moon, eyes in the dark. It keeps repeating over and over again. And like I said, I had visions of Christopher Reeve this whole episode, this whole piece here. But then I've got some other stuff to talk about too. Okay, so then we have a captain's voiceover. 4 days have passed, but we have made little progress in solving the mystery of the Britain. I've decided we should return to Starbase 220, and to that end, Commander LaForge is rigging the Britain for towing. LaForge says, I'm trying to recalibrate the field generators, but I don't see why we can't get the engine started. It just doesn't make any sense. We have an extra, and the extra has lines. Again, we have two extras with lines, and this is a guy. Usually we don't get the guys with the extra lines, but he's got lines. So he's got bragging rights, and he appears with LaForge on a one-on-one. He starts hearing stuff, and he's like, can you hear it? There's someone still alive on the ship. I heard it. I thought I heard something. LaForge said, the ship has been thoroughly searched. There's nobody left on board. He goes, sorry, sir, my mistake. LaForge says, don't worry about it. There are 34 people who were found dead on this ship. That's enough to make anybody uneasy. People says, thank you, sir. And we see Troy in sickbay for a few minutes trying to communicate with him. And he's like, bright, it's bright, it's bright. Okay. Now, it was nice to see Kiko and O'Brien back on our screens. It was nice to see them as a couple. And because I don't know why, I know I looked it up and I'm wrong. I know I'm wrong, but I'm going to put it out there anyway. Because they're a couple and because they end up on Deep Space Nine, he's getting, because the stuff is starting to affect him, and he's got that Irish temper, could you say? So she comes in and she says, boy, what a day this was. I'm doing an enzyme study on some what plants, she names them, but they're turning out to have really weird stuff. What a headache. And Brian is like, is that why you're late? She goes, oh no, I had a conference with Dr. Balsas. She wants to do a study. Now, I don't know why. Like I said, I know I went wrong because I know she's plants. I know she's plants. I know it. I know she's not a medical doctor. But my brain So the two of them together thought of Deep Space Nine, which hasn't happened yet, isn't even thought of yet. And I thought of him. I, I did. I thought of him. And I'm thinking, but he's a medical doctor. He's not a plant doctor. But I thought of him. Do you know who he is? That's who I thought of. I don't know why, but that's where I went. And then he starts asking her about Tom Corbin, and he goes off, and he's going to go to 10 Forward and have a drink. I think it was just, she tries to play, she's obviously not affected yet, and he is. So then he goes to 10 Forward, I guess maybe to have a drink or something, and Gillespie's another male extra with lines, a lot of lines, and tries to play the old buddy thing. He says, "Hello, Chief, having coffee?" He goes, "No, I'm drinking too much coffee." He says, "I'm surprised to see you here at this hour." He goes, "Why?" He goes, "You're not out of the honeymoon yet. Usually newlyweds can't keep their hands off each other. She has work to do. She heads up the plant biology lab, you know." And he asks about strange things going that, and he goes off on the guy. They're starting to get tempers. Now, I want to bring up a point. I got a point, but I got to wait till the appropriate time, because otherwise I'm going to say it about 5 or 6 times. Just a second. So they have a heated convo. Okay, so then he starts hearing stuff. He keeps going to his door, and there's nobody there, blah, blah, blah. They go through it a few times. He gets upset. He walks around, blah, blah, blah. I had a thought here. Well, maybe not here, maybe the next one. So Dr. Crusher and Troy come in, and they say they tell him that they're afraid whatever happened on the Britannia is happening here. Picard is explaining. Troy says, "Well, Beverly and I have been getting unusual reports. People behaving strangely, others hearing sounds that aren't there." Picard says hallucinations, and Crusher says in some cases, and others erratic behavior. We can't track down any element that might be responsible. Picard says, "But everything started when we found the Britain." Crusher's like, "Yes, we have to get the Enterprise away from here if it gets any worse." Picard says, "We're trying to prepare a tow, blah, blah, blah." And we'll get to that next scene. But I'm wondering, why not put some of the crew in stasis pods? They did it on Voyager. They put them in for a month on one of those episodes. Why not put some of, the plant people, some non-essentials, in the stasis for like a week, and then put the next set in the pods for a week? Do a week on, week off, week on, maybe delay it that way, keep people alive that way. I was just thinking of the stasis pods, and then I have another thought about the other thing. So then they're trying to get away. So then they're on the bridge and they're trying to get away, and Picard says, "Ensign, maneuver us into tractor beam range." And Rager says, "Aye, sir." And Data realizes she's losing it. She's losing the memory. She's forgetting what to do. So they send her to sickbay. Then they have Ensign Lynn came over and took over. And Picard tells her to report to sickbay. And then Picard says, "Ready the tractor beam, Mr. Worf." And Data says, "Captain Thrusters are losing power." Picard says, "Impulse engines ahead, minimum power." Lynn says, "Impulse engines are not responding, sir." Riker says, "Geordi, what's going on down there?" LaForge says, "I don't know, sir. Nothing's responding." Picard says, "Go to warp." And LaForge is like, "Captain, we don't have warp drive either." Picard says, "We have no functional propulsion system." Data says, "No, sir. Apparently we do not." Lynn says, "We are adrift." Riker says, "Just like the Britain." So then we have another voiceover. "The Enterprise has now been adrift for a total of 10 days. We have sent subspace distress calls, but because of our distant location, we cannot expect a response for at least another 2 weeks." My co-host is wandering around. So Data is giving a briefing. After analyzing the sensor logs of the BRITAIN and the Enterprise, as well as the data from the last series of probes, I conclude that we have become trapped in a massive rupture in space, into which energy is absorbed. Picard says, "You mean the Tychen rift?" Crusher says, "What?" Data says, "A rare anomaly named after Bella Tychen, the Melothian captain who first encountered it." LaForge says, "Tychen's rift, that would explain why we don't have engine power." Data says, "The ship's energy is being drained into the fissure before we can utilize it." Worf enters. He says, "I was detained." We never get an explanation of what that was about. Data says, "When Tychen was trapped in the rift, his analysis determined that a massive energy release might overload and dislocate the anomaly. Fortunately, his cargo included actinium and uranium, which he used to detonate the explosion. He then escaped through the rupture center of the rift." LaForge says, "But we aren't carrying anything that could produce that kind of explosion. Not even our photon torpedoes would be enough." Riker says, "Can't we replicate the elements the Tychon used?" "No, sir. We no longer have the power to reduce complex elements in our replicator. We must find a way to generate a violent energy release without using conventional means." Data says, "In the Tychen experience, did the crew exhibit behavioral changes?" Data says, "No. There were no reports of unusual contact among the crew." Troy says, "Well, what about the nightmares?" Data says, "There are no records of sleep disturbances of any kind, Counselor." Dr. Crusher says, "Then what is it? What is happening to us?" So they go for a walk in the hallway, and Riker says the only one who doesn't seem affected by this is Data. And then they go into the turbo lift, and Riker says, "Bridge." And Picard says, "Number one, how?" Riker says, "Sir." Picard says, "Any hallucinations, nightmares?" Riker says, "No, I'd be a liar if I said I felt myself. I had to bite my tongue to keep from snapping at people. A couple of times I've gone to my quarters, felt as if there was someone there waiting for me." Picard says, "I've had similar feelings. With everyone succumbing, it's even more important that one of us attempt to keep control of the facilities. I want you to turn in, take a nap. I'll be on the bridge. You can relieve me in 4 hours." Riker says, "Yes, sir," and he goes to deck 8, and Picard has a whole incident in the turbo lift. Picard arrives on the bridge and he thinks the ceiling is falling. The sky is falling. He's hallucinating. Upsets Worf a little bit. 2 questions. Are those really Jonathan Frakes' feet? And would you sit for this? Because they're real. They're moving around. They're slithering all over the place. So, do you think he really did this? I know they're probably not poisonous. They would never use poisonous. They're probably just garden snakes or something. But would you agree to this? I'm just saying. So, we need some more room here. Sorry. So, this conversation, Picard is telling Data that Data is going to be in charge of the Enterprise because he's losing it too. He's been affected by the thing. And Data's the only one that's not affected because he's a machine. And Picard says it's terrifying prospect to lose control of one's mind. When I was young, I remember watching my grandfather deteriorate from a powerful, intelligent figure to a frail wisp of a man who could barely make his way home. Mr. Data, it is my responsibility somehow to see that the ship is guided to safety. I will need to rely on you from now on. We may need to count on you for our very survival." Data says, "I will do my best, sir." This whole conversation reminds me of Alzheimer's. And there are so many people out there that their relatives will go, "Oh, it's dementia." I do not know why there are some of you out there who will argue to death that dementia and Alzheimer's are 2 different things. They're not. Just once people feel better with the one word than the other word, because Alzheimer's is a very scary word. And having been through it a few times, it's not fun. And this particular previous time was really, really bad. I had an Alzheimer's relative, and they tried in the beginning to stop it with meds and ultrasounds and scans, and doctors refused to diagnose it in the beginning, and it just got worse and worse and worse and worse. And the person did get violent at one point, not recognizing relatives, not recognizing spouses, screaming in terror because they didn't know people. And it got to the point where they didn't remember how to, not only did they forget who you were as a relative, spouse, sister, brother, that type of situation, but they forgot how to eat and forgot how to use forks and knives, would reach for a piece of food and forget what they were reaching for, even though it was right there. It was right there. The chicken nugget was right there. And the reach, and it was like, oh, huh? And then they forgot how to chew. And then they forgot how to swallow. And then they just forgot completely. And on one hand, you're hoping that the relative is not suffering because they just don't know. They're just not home. But you on the outside having to watch it is painful, is absolutely excruciating to watch the deterioration of a loved one. So this little conversation, I could have milked this forever because this was Alzheimer's. And like I said before, they should have started putting people in the stasis pods, knocked them out cold, put them all in comas, 10 days on, 10 days off, or something like that. That way they could have avoided all this stuff, especially the scene in the mess hall or the 10 forward. And we will get to that because that was so mob mentality. And I like Ganon's role in this. I'm glad she's in this episode. She's a voice of reason. And maybe she's not affected as much because she too is supposed to be another species. But anyway. So then we're in, I guess, the morgue, they call it. Dr. Crusher says, I'd like to do more cross sections on the brain tissue of some of these bodies. Set up the positron emission sensor in sickbay, and I'll decide which ones I want to study. The medic says, yes, doctor. The medic leaves, and Beverly has the hallucinations. So then we're in the captain's ready room. Crusher says, Captain, let me ask you this. Since we located the BRITAIN, can you remember of any of your dreams? Picard says, I hardly ever recall dreams. But most people don't, but think, have you had a dream in the last 10 days? Picard says, I don't recall. Crusher says, I'm willing to bet you haven't. What's more, neither has anyone else aboard this ship except for Troy. I began to realize that when she talked about having nightmares. I've done some additional brain tissue tests on the bodies of some of the bodies of the, doctor says, the BRITAIN. Crusher says, right. I've also done some scans on random cross-section from our crew. They both have the same results, a unique chemical imbalance caused by, Crusher says, dream deprivation every night when we enter into sleep. Data, I believe the doctor means is that humans enter what is known as REM sleep, rapid eye movement. It is the level of brainwave activity at which one dreams. Crusher says we have to dream in order to survive. If we don't reach REM sleep, we don't dream. We begin to lose our cognitive abilities. We find it hard to concentrate. We forget how to do most of the ordinary tasks. Then we become irritable, paranoid. Some people experience hallucinations. Picard says you're describing the situation on the ship. But Counselor Troy reported nightmares. Crusher says maybe it's because she's betazoid. I don't know why. All I know is there's more going on here than caught in the Tyrican Rift, and I don't know how or why it's happening. But I do know this, it's an inevitable conclusion to this pattern, and if I can't find a way to stop it, we'll all go insane. And my thought again, why not put everybody in stasis? Or in comas for 7 days? To slow whatever it is down, to give a chance for everything else to happen. For everybody else to, but, and then we have our little gang mob mentality thing. She's dreaming. I have an angry co-host. Let me out! Let me out! Let me out! She's dreaming. And it takes a while, but they finally realize somebody's trying to communicate with them. Yes, you may go. You may seek freedom. There's the other co-host in his sky retreat. See if I can. There he is. There's my co-host. Sorry for the noise. Sorry for the noise. I know. I'm low tech here. So she's having the dream again, double. What does that mean? Is something doubled? She gets up to go where Beverly's checking on the crewman. Diana, nothing's working. I've tried somatic drugs. I've tried inducing theta waves. I've tried. No one contains sleep. Put them all in comas. Put them in stasis pods. Put them all to sleep that way. So the stuff is getting to Gillespie, and he starts holding court. I think it's an experiment. Captain Picard is trying to see how long we'll take it. We're stuck here like rats. And Guinan's like, you're wrong. And Gillespie says, we're lab animals. We're up to experiment. We're doing... And he goes on. And it's just a mob mentality. The stuff is starting to work on their brain. Again, Red Horse, Delusions and Death. I wonder if it came out about this time. I wonder if she got the idea from this. I have to check on what year that was written. I don't think it was written this early. I think it was written after. So, it could have been. Never know. So then we're in engineering, and LaForge is having trouble to get thoughts. He's like, Data's like, the main deflector dish. And Jody's like, yeah, the deflector dish. So what do we do now? Data says, Bridge, Mr. Worf, activate the deflector. Aye, sir. They activate the deflector, and it doesn't happen. So Data says the energy was absorbed into the rift. Picard says, can we do it again? He goes, no, sir. It'll just take more of their energy. And they're losing... The last system to go is going to be life support. Okay, so then we get Worf, and Worf is having a moment. He's putting stuff all over this dagger, and he's saying all these Klingon words, and he wants to... I feel like we're doing a Japanese movie here with the Karish, whatever the thing is called, whatever the suicide thing is called. This reminds me a lot of that, the Japanese thing. She's like, Worf, no. He goes, you will not stop me. She calls security. She goes, why? What is it? He goes, I'm no longer a warrior. I no longer feel strong. I feel what? Trey's like, you feel what? He goes, I feel fear. Trey says, to admit that you're afraid gives you strength. Worf says, something is waiting for us. I'm not strong enough to fight it. Troy says, no, Worf, it's just an illusion. It's not real. Put down the knife. Security comes, and then she's like, everything's okay. And then she's like, let me take you to sickbay. So then we have a voiceover by Data. I've assumed command of the Enterprise at the request of Captain Picard. Our situation is deteriorating. Many of the crew are unable to function, and our life support systems are beginning to falter. Again, put everybody in stasis pods. I'm just saying. So then Troy's in sickbay. Once before you said double. What did you mean? What is double? Hogan says mate's too bright. Twin cannot leave the twin. One moon circling. What do you mean you can't leave? No, please can't. You want to leave. Why can't you? Can't go. Help. One moon circling. Eyes. That's it. Eyes in the dark. Trey says eyes in the dark. What's that voice in my dream? Is that where you heard it in a dream over and over? Beverly, I don't know what it is. I don't know what's happening. Crusher's like, what? My nightmare. It's not a dream. It's not a dream at all. It's a message. Okay, so then Troy and Crusher and Data and Picard are talking about the situation. And they're explaining that REM sleep occurs differently for betazoids than humans. And I like to believe that humans are there's a race using this to communicate telepathically. And Data says it's possible that this telepathic communication is creating interference with the REM sleep of the other species. That would explain why the rest of our crew is not dreaming. Picard says, Council, what are these beings trying to tell us? Troy says they're calling for help. I think they're trapped just like we are. Eyes in the dark could mean this twin star system. Data says your hypothesis is certainly plausible. There may be another ship on the other side of the fissure where we cannot detect it. Crusher says, is there a way we can block their signals? Data says there's no technology to block telepathic communication. Troy says maybe communication through dreams can work both ways. I could try to get them to stop. Data, perhaps we can accomplish more than that. If there is another ship and we can reach them, we might be able to coordinate our efforts to free ourselves. Troy says it is conceivable when working with patients with debilitating nightmares. I often use a therapeutic treatment called direct dreaming. Dreamers can learn to control of their dreams, retain a conscious memory even while in the REM sleep. I can remember a short message and deliver it to them. Picard says, if it was possible, what would you say? So, Troy and Data are going through some molecules. They're working together with the aliens. We must discover a means by which we can produce an explosion more intense than either one of us could achieve alone. Troy says, what are you looking for? These are elements we have available. Some of them could be used in creation of an explosion reaction. If we could communicate this inventory to the other ship, perhaps they would be able to. No data, that's too complex. It has to be simple, a clear message. I am uncertain if simple transmission will be adequate. Troy says, no, stop, go back. There, stop. One moon circles. Bing, 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 bing. She thinks it's 12. She binged 12 times. She thinks it's 12. It's not 12. So, yes, Counselor, one electron circles one proton. This is the hydrogen atom. Perhaps the aliens are thinking as we are to collaborate in producing an explosion. If hydrogen is combined with another element, calolium, for example, is extremely volatile, but the message mean they have hydrogen or hydrogen. Data says immediately have support systems will continue only in emergency areas. And we have the mob mentality again in 10 forward. And Guinan has her moment. It's some interesting gun she's got there. I'm trying to figure out what it reminds me of, but I can't figure out what it reminds me of. A rifle, phaser, something from Stargate, something from something. It looks like something. Looks like a long-range rifle covered in gold. She had a good time with this, but at least she stopped the fight. Big, huge mob mentality fight in 10 forward. Then put Troy into a dream state so she can do the communication with the alien species. So Data releases the gases. She goes into the dream state. She's able to communicate. They suspend it a little bit. She's like, they're counting down 90 seconds and something seconds, and she's like, eyes in the dark, one moon, 10 seconds remaining. Picard says nothing, no explosion. Data says the council was unsuccessful. Then the firework display starts up on the view screen, and the whole thing happens. And they're like, Picard's like, activate impulse engines, get us out of here. And the whole thing works. Data says we have cleared the rift, sir. Warp engines are back online. Picard set a course to So they've gotten out of the thing. We've cleared the rift, sir. Warp engines are coming back online. Because like 6 course 2. Data says setting course to Starbase 220, sir. As my final duty is after captain, sir, I'm ordering you to go to bed, and I'm ordering all personnel to go to bed. Yes, go to bed. That's good. That works. Go to bed. So here we are. We have finished Night Terrors, our first episode on Disc 5 of Season 4. That was interesting. And I hope you will return with me next week for Identity Crisis. Following week, Ninth Degree. Following, we get John D. Lance back as Q. So this is Disc 5, Season 4, Episode 191. I look forward to seeing you again. Thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate it. Have a good one.